from as early as I can remember. My mother's need to clean wasn't just a habit, it was a compulsion. It went beyond the ordinary. It became a ritual that consumed her entire existence. Yeah, at first I thought it was just her way of coping with the chaos of life. She would meticulously clean every corner of the house, ensuring that not a single speck of dust was left behind. But it didn't stop at the house. There was everything: her car, my shoes, even the windowsills no one ever noticed. She treated cleaning like it was a sacred duty, a personal mission that only she could accomplish. But recently, that obsession has taken a dark, terrifying turn. It wasn't just a matter of cleaning anymore. It felt like something sinister had settled into her mind, a presence that wouldn't let her rest. I remember trying to reason with her one evening. After a particularly long day at school, "Mom, let me help," I said, watching as she scrubbed the kitchen floor with a force that seemed almost violent. "No," she responded without even looking at me, her hands scrubbing furiously. "You never do it right. Not like it needs to be done." There was something hollow in her voice, something cold. The way her hands moved across the floor, faster and harder with each passing second, filled me with unease. I wanted to insist to help her at least feel less alone in her obsession, but something inside me recoiled, urging me to leave her alone. "Okay," I said, stepping away. "I'll be upstairs if you need me." I didn't know it at the time, but that would be the last normal conversation we ever had. That night, I lay in bed, listening to the sounds of her relentless scrubbing echoing through the walls. I didn't sleep. The next day, things got worse. I came home from school to find her standing in the living room, frantically wiping down the walls. The walls weren't dirty, nothing in the house ever was, but she wasn't just cleaning anymore. It was like she was trying to scrub something invisible away, something only she could see. "Mom?" I called out gently. She didn't respond. Her eyes were wide, her pupils dilated as if she was in some kind of trance. I took a step closer, and that's when she snapped her head toward me. Her gaze was wild, like an animal caught in a cage. "Stay back," she hissed. "You're covered in it." "Covered in what?" I asked, my voice shaking, but she had already turned back to the wall, scrubbing harder and faster. Her hands moved so violently I was afraid she'd tear her skin off. I didn't know what to do. She'd always been obsessive, sure, but this was something else. I backed away, retreating to my room, hoping she'd calm down by morning, but she didn't. Each day, her fixation grew worse, and each day she spoke less. The house, once filled with the scent of freshly baked bread and warmth, now reeked of bleach and chemical cleaners. And then came the night everything truly spiraled out of control. I bought her flowers, red roses, the only thing I knew she loved. I thought maybe it would remind her of something other than the dirt she seemed to be fighting. I thought maybe it would remind her of me. When I handed them to her, her face twisted into something unrecognizable. She wasn't my mother in that moment. Her eyes locked on my hand. "The thorns," she whispered, a hint of something dark creeping into her voice. "You're bleeding." I hadn't noticed a small scratch from the thorns, but the moment she saw the blood, her demeanor changed completely. It was like something snapped inside her. Her hands trembled and her lips curled into a grotesque smile. "Let me clean it," she murmured, taking a step toward me. "No, Mom, it's fine," I stammered, backing away. But she wasn't listening. Her eyes were focused on the small trail of blood running down my finger, and she reached out with trembling hands, holding a rag soaked in cleaner. "I need to make it clean," she said, her voice shaking with urgency. "It has to be clean." Before I could react, she grabbed my wrist with an iron grip and began scrubbing the cut with the rag. It burned, and I winced in pain, but she didn't stop. Her scrubbing became frantic, almost manic, as if she was trying to erase the very existence of my skin. "Mom, stop. You're hurting me," I cried, trying to pull away, but she only tightened her grip. Her eyes were wild now, unhinged, and she whispered, under her breath, "The blood, it's everywhere. It won't stop. It never stops." So I finally yanked my arm free, stumbling backward, my heart racing with fear. "Mom, what's wrong with you?" I shouted, backing away toward the stairs. But she didn't answer. She just stared at her hands, shaking, whispering something incoherent. So I fled to my room, slamming the door shut and barricading it with my dresser. I could hear her footsteps outside, pacing back and forth in the hallway, muttering to herself. My heart was pounding in my chest as I frantically searched for my phone to call for help. Then, as if the universe had one last cruel twist in store for me, I found the letter. It was tucked behind my dresser, hidden away like some long-forgotten secret. My name was scrawled on the front in my father's handwriting. I hadn't seen or heard from him in years, but shaking hands, I opened the letter and my world collapsed around me. Gemma, if you're reading this, then things have already gone too far. I tried to warn you, your mother, she isn't the same. She hasn't been for a long time. I couldn't stay because I feared what she would do. I'm a coward for leaving, but you need to know the truth. There's something inside her. It feeds on blood, on fear. Whatever you do, don't let her see you bleed. Don't let her touch it. Please stay safe, my sweet girl. I'm sorry. Dad. My hands trembled as I dropped the letter. A cold, suffocating dread filled my chest. The sound of footsteps outside my door grew louder, and then I heard her voice. Gemma, honey, she called softly, her voice sickly sweet. I just want to help. Let mommy take care of you. The smell of bleach seeped under the door. Let me scrub it all away. I just need to make you clean. And then I heard the wet sound of a rag being dragged along the floor. I used to be deeply involved in freaking art of exploring the unseen corners of the telephone network. One day, I discovered something in the phone lines that shouldn't have been there, something dark, unsettling, and hidden in plain sight. Let me take you back to the days before the internet took over everything, back when explorers of technology dug into realms that most people had no clue existed. For those who might not know, freaking was like the underground hacking scene, but instead of computers, we were cracking open the mysterious world of telephone lines. It wasn't just about free calls, though. It's what many people associated it with. There was an entire universe to discover, especially if you were curious and had a penchant for bending the rules of technology. In the early 1980s, before the breakup of Bell systems and the dawn of modern telecommunications, the phone lines were a playground for people like me. We explored, dialed into secret test lines, and uncovered strange loops that regular people would never hear. But what I stumbled upon during one of my late-night freaking sessions changed everything. I had been toying with what I thought was just another abandoned test line, a line used by the phone companies for internal purposes. This one was different. It didn't just play tones. It played a voice, a slow, deep voice that seemed to echo through the receiver, counting in a monotone, almost robotic manner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then an ear-piercing tone blasted through the line, so sharp it felt like it was slicing into my skull. I dropped the phone in sheer agony, clutching my ears, feeling the reverberation through my entire body. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a random test line. This was something else, something far more sinister. I didn't tell anyone at first. I took a break, tried to convince myself it was just a fluke. But the curiosity wouldn't let me rest. I found myself dialing back into that same number over and over, searching for some clue about what this strange series of numbers was hiding. Each time, the voice repeated, always starting from 1 and going up to 5, followed by that maddening tone. As I delved deeper, I started finding other numbers connected to the first one that seemed to be part of some larger, hidden system. These numbers were not in any phone book or directory. They required specific frequencies to dial into, frequencies that were not even accessible by a regular phone. It took me weeks to figure out how to crack the code, but I finally managed to unlock more of these hidden lines. Each number I cracked was like peeling back another layer of reality, and what lay beneath was increasingly terrifying. By the time I got to the 5th number, the strange sounds and voices became almost musical, but in a way that made my skin crawl. I recorded the sounds on a tape, convinced there was some pattern, some meaning I hadn't yet grasped. Then came the 7th number. This one was different from the rest. It took me days to modify my freaking equipment just to connect the call. When I finally did, all I heard was silence. But then, out of nowhere, came a faint voice, crackling through the static, barely audible. "It can hear us." I froze. My hand tightened around the phone and my heart started racing. I had never heard anything like this before. This wasn't just a voice recording. This was live. Someone or something was on the other end of that line. No, it can't. The voices were fragmented, as if speaking from the other side of some immense barrier. I held my breath, terrified they might hear me, but I couldn't hang up. I had to know more. Suddenly, the line went dead. I sat there stunned. What the hell had I just heard? Who or what was talking on that line? And more importantly, why? I immediately called up another freaker I knew, Jimmy from Oklahoma. I shared the details, feeling a mix of fear and excitement, hoping for some explanation. Sounds like you stumbled onto something you shouldn't have, man," Jimmy said, half joking, but there was an edge to his voice. "Government, military, who knows? You're playing with fire." He was right. I knew it, but I couldn't stop. Over the next few weeks, I continued my investigation, delving deeper into this bizarre phone system. Each new number I found led to more strange, disturbing noises, until finally, I hit a dead end. The last number in the series required frequencies far beyond what any normal phone could handle. I had to build a new setup just to reach it. When I did, the result was unlike anything I'd encountered before. At first, there was nothing but the sound of static. Then came a sharp, high-pitched whine that made my ears ring. But this time I was ready. I recorded the whole thing, every sound, every second of it. And then, out of the noise, the voice returned. "It knows." I slammed the receiver down, my heart pounding in my chest. I had gone too far, pushed too deep into something that was never meant to be uncovered. Whatever I had found in those phone lines wasn't just some forgotten test system. It was something dark, something alive. To this day, I'm not sure what I uncovered, and I'm not sure I want to know. But I do know one thing: some things are better left alone. And if you ever find yourself exploring the hidden realms of technology, remember, there are some doors you're not meant to open. If you enjoyed these spine-tingling stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more chills. Your support helps keep the horror alive. See you in the next terrifying tale.